Yes, indeed, boys and girls, it is electric. I am a huge fan of the band LCD Soundsystem, so we'll talk all things James Murphy and LCD Soundsystem. What instrument? Drums, guitar? What did you first pick up?
The first thing I picked up in earnest was guitar. I tried to get piano lessons when I was a kid, and that was denied. My mother said that we're not fancy.
Wow.
Yeah, we're really Irish Catholic kind of background. Okay. I really wanted to play piano, and my mother used to get her hair cut by a woman named Fifi, and her husband Eric was a musician, like a professional musician.
You remember everybody's name from back then? That's
amazing. It all gets gray around 24.
Okay. Fifi.
What's a cool name, Fifi.
Yeah, Fifi, of course.
And she'd cut my mom's hair. She used to work in a salon, but my mom would go to her house after a while and just cut her hair there. And they were good friends, so they would, a haircut would be 4 hours, where they'd have coffee and then talk, and
Sure.
And I would just be there, like at 5 years old, and I would go sit and play piano, and I would get books so that I could hold the sustain pedal down and then gently play piano. And Fifi and Eric told my mother, like, you should give him piano lessons. Like 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds bang on pianos. That's what they do. Like he's gently figuring out little chords and playing music. I think he should play piano. And I was so excited. I was like, yes. My mother was like saying to Fifi, like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a good idea. And I was like, it's done. I'm going to get piano lessons. We're going to get a piano. And we got in the car, and I was like, so I'm going to get piano lessons? My mother was like, no. We're not going to get piano lessons. We're not fancy. You don't get piano lessons. And I was heartbroken. So when I fought, I finally did get a piano. But I started playing guitar, really. My sister had an acoustic guitar where she would play landslide and various picking vocally things. And so I started teaching myself a little bit on that.
What were the first songs that you would start emulating?
I started by writing. I didn't start by playing anything else. I couldn't play anything else. So the first thing I played on guitar was something I wrote, which I still know to this day when I was probably 11. And it's just like something with the open E string and then moving the B string around. And I recently played it the other day just sort of make myself happy. So I started by being in bands. Like I started by making music at home. I had 2 tape recorders, and I got coffee cans and made a drum set. And so I would play a drum pattern, and I had 1 can filled with rocks, and that was the snare. And like I would play these drum patterns, and then I would sit that cassette recorder next to the other cassette recorder, press that one and record.
That's crazy.
Play the drums.
5,000 miles away in Denmark, I did paint cans.
Yeah, you had
and paint stirrers.
Yeah, and then I would play the bass line on an acoustic guitar, and then then those 2 would be together, and I'd record, and they would just sound awful by the time you did it 3 times.
I played the guitar and bass on tennis rackets, so that's where we differ.
I did have an acoustic guitar, my brother's acoustic guitar, but my sister's acoustic guitar.
So you were basically a one-man band.
Yep, and then I started a band when I was 12 with my friend Paul and Dale, and we were called Great, so that we could, if we played a show, we could say, "Hi, we're great." And we were also called the Mystery Meats at one point, and maybe the Extremes, and we were like a new wave band. And which I like to point out, we were a new wave band when it wasn't ironic or retro. It was because it was new wave, because it was 1981, 82. I recently found cassettes of the rehearsals from 82, 81, 82, and I learned that I've not changed a lot. I was trying to sound relaxed. You could hear us playing, and we'd start a song, and like they'd start in a different place, and we'd all play along, and they'd all be really happy. My friends Dale and Paul would be like laughing and happy. I'd be like, yeah, that was great. Hey, let's try and start all together. And like I was already
that's overrated.
Well, I was already like a controlling, worried, detail-oriented person trying to seem relaxed. It was very sad to hear, actually.
You've always been very open about your self-confessed controlling ways. You said even at 12 you were sort of trying to control the musical environment.
I wanted to be good.
And coming off the bathroom on the airplane, which is equally disgusting.
Which I clean.
Oh, my God. You're the guy on the floor cleaning that.
Every time.
For the rest of us, thank you.
If you ever see me go into a bathroom, go in after me, because it'll be the cleanest that airplane bathroom will ever be.
I'm always standing there going, I can't sit down here because there's pee on the floor and I can't clean it up. You're just caught in this like purgatory.
Yeah. Well, what you do is you close and lock the door. You take your jacket off and you hang it on the hook. You take out a bunch of napkins, you throw them on the floor. Then you clean with your feet. You do this for a long time. Then you pile them all together, and then you throw napkins on top of that pile. You pick it up. You grab another napkin. Use that tissue, paper towel to push open the door because you do not want to force a pee-covered thing on your hand.
That's right.
Then you throw it away. Then you wash your hands. Then you clean the toilet.
Toilet cleaning tips with James Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
My father said a couple things to me that stuck with me, and one of them was how you leave a public bathroom is the measure of who you are as a person. Because it's one of the only times you're not accountable. Nobody knows you. And everything else is stuff you
That's
do
some deep
based on how you are seen. But it's like how you leave a public bathroom is literally how you
love
feel
that.
about your fellow man, basically.
In your drum phases, were you also telling the guitar players what to play and how to play it?
No, not as much. I mean, a little bit. But I was trying to hang back, and I did so. But wasn't happy. You know, I was okay with it, but I was frustrated. And I could exercise certain things by engineering, by being the engineer for the sessions and by running the studio.
When you were playing drums, were you the primary writer at that time? Okay.
No, I didn't. In
So
fact,
you really hung back.
Yeah, I hung back. I wrote lyrics, I sang some, and I would occasionally write stuff. But I tried to kind of, what I would do is sit there and wait till something happened that I liked and be like, repeat that. And I'd be like, okay, that goes there. So I would do a lot of arrangement stuff, which I think works. If you're not a drummer who plays along, I think a drummer can be a good position to arrange things.
It's so amazing. As I'm sitting here listening to you, and we don't want to, I'm more interested in you, but you and I, we're so alike. It's crazy with this stuff with micromanaging and arranging and everything you're saying. I'm just sitting here. I want to like interrupt you every 2 seconds. Because, wait a minute, I do that. Yeah. I'm like that too, and I'm always miserable. And I always.
But it's hard because you wind up yelling at your friends for not exactly playing the thing they played 4 minutes ago. No, the way you played it 4 minutes ago was the good one. And it can.
And James Hetfield, I'm telling you, I mean, it's not 4 minutes ago; it's 4 seconds ago.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, when he's just putting his guitar on, he plays like 5 great riffs. He's not even tuned up yet.
Yeah.
And there'll be like some rhythmic pattern or some note selections. Go, holy, we could build a song around that. That thing you just played 30 seconds ago. It's like, what thing? And then it's like, so now we have
everything's recorded.
Every single element of anything that ever happens in this world musically is being recorded. Yeah. But I still drive Mike Gillies crazy with, rewind 28 seconds. Well, wait, there was a thing at 32 seconds back that's also really cool.
Right,
and the first thing that you were looking for, it got lost because you found something at 32 seconds back. I mean, it's crazy because Hetfield just spits the out, but he's so unaware of it.
But that's probably why you can spit it out.
Exactly, yeah. And then I'm the one that has to sit there and kind of catch it.
Right.
And it used to be this thing all the time where he was very nonchalant about it. It'd be like, there'll be something else that comes along. And I'll be like, no, we got to save every one of these great riffs. And it's only been in the last, 5 years on this last album cycle where we're starting to get so weighed down by the amount of material that we have.
By recording everything.
Yeah. DFA.
Yeah.
And the label. And that whole part of, now we're in your, mid-20s?
Well, late 20s, 30s.
Yep.
Well, DFA actually came, I was a sound man for a band called Six Finger Satellite in the 90s, was a tremendously great band of unfriendly punishers.
So when you're playing drums in one band, you're doing...
I'm doing a little production.
You're
I'm doing live sound.
Man. So you're basically multitasking. I mean, all these things are going on at the same time.
Well, these are my jobs. Like I was a front of house guy, and I had a little recording studio, and that's how I made my living. I was both front of house bands. Like a band would take me out on tour, and I'd get paid a small amount of money and drive the van and help load gear and rewire PA systems and stuff. And I would do monitors and front of house from the front of house, and I would also produce people for $150 a day or $200 a day, and this was my only source of income because the band cost money. Being in the band cost money, so that's what I was just doing all those years. But my nickname was Death from Above because I was insanely loud, and I was really good at rewiring sound systems, and because people in small clubs don't know sound systems typically.
Is that something you just learned by yourself, or did you have any technical?
I was mostly
skills?
Self-taught, and I learned from a lot of stuff from just dealing with gear and sort of like I'm an autodidact about almost everything. But Bob Weston, who recorded my band, who's in a band with Steve Albini in Shellac, and he was working for Steve for a long time as an engineer, like showed me some basic stuff that I extrapolated into like understanding other things. I think it's quite natural to me. The technology of sound is very natural to me. And so I would go in and look at sound systems and just change the way they're wired typically, like change series to parallel, or like
Just to make them louder?
make them louder and have more headroom. I always wanted more headroom. I'd change a lot of times what I was doing in systems that were overpowered, I would move the crossover point between the mid boxes and the horns up, which would mean that these frequencies that were hurting people, like these speakers were tuned perfectly in a perfect environment, they might be flatter, but I was tuning them up so that like the higher mid ranges that the 12-inch speakers were handling would generally soften out because the 12-inch couldn't do them that accurately, so they'd lower in volume and they'd get a little softer, and the horns wouldn't have to try to replicate those lower high mid-range frequencies, which would blow them up, and they'd be painful. So I'd move that frequency up so they'd be a little more feathery, and it would just make these natural. And I would just like push these sound systems. I would change the wiring in the limiters, because they put in, some guy would come in, put in a house limiter and be like, "Don't let anybody touch these," and I'd pretend I wasn't touching them and go and like change them radically on the output stage. So like the house sound guy would look and he'd see the limiters aren't engaging, but it's louder than it's ever been. He's like, "Huh," and I'm like, I would just lie and say things like, "Oh, there's a natural perception of volume that I'm gaining by using a lot of 10K. That's like your ear hears that as loud. It's not louder than it normally is." And of course, it'd be like infinitely louder than it normally was. I mean, these were by definition not very professional systems. These are punk clubs with crappy systems that I had to work around. It's the best education I ever had.
Tweaking them to the point where they were functioning better.
Or sounding awesome. Going from sounding like garbage to sounding awesome. Like that was. It was the best education in sound I could ever have gotten.
Was there another event that made you
become doctrinaire?
Just hearing your story, I mean, it sounds like you've had this kind of approach to life for all these years, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're 180. Was there some sort of
insecurity,
traumatic event that all of a sudden came to the forefront? Or
moving to New York.
Moving to New York.
I was a bumpkin. I was from a farm town. I was insecure. I moved to New York. I had crazy long unwashed hair. Like I wasn't New York cool at all. Like I was like a weird suburban country kid. Similarly, like I was the cool kid in my town. I was the #1 tennis player in my town.
Sure.
And then I came and everybody was way cooler than me and I didn't understand them. And I got scared, and when you get scared, you cling to doctrine, religious or political or ethical. Suddenly I found in the 90s there was a real like Indier than thou, like the birth of that Indier than thou doctrine, in which insecure people could suddenly be arrogant. And I fell for it. And I made mediocre music as a result. And even though within that, I felt like I was transgressing, like I had a stage name, which was unacceptable, which we did things on purpose to be unacceptable. I was kicking against it in a really minor way. In reality, I was subsumed by sort of like 90s doctrinaire rock and roll stuff.
So tell me about the formative years. You basically wrote all of it?
Yeah. Like, no, I mean, like Losing My Edge, I just made it. Like Losing My Edge, the first song, I used to play basketball twice a week with the Adam Harvitz and Adam Yauch from Beastie Boys. They had like a pickup game with kids they grew up with and some musicians and stuff in the neighborhood, and I would go play with them. And one day, Adam Harvitz, Ad Rock, shows up with a beatbox, like a little radio, which has a keyboard built into it that he had picked up at a garage sale and was like as a present for me. I think it was my birthday or something. And I got this thing and I thought it was the coolest thing. Adam Harvitz gave to me, which was super cool. Like, this is just my beatbox that Ad Rock gave me, no big deal. And so I plugged it in, and there was a beat on it that I really liked. And I suddenly had an idea for what LCD Soundsystem was. LCD Soundsystem was a name that I'd already had that I wanted to make something as. I thought I was just gonna sing along to this thing. I was like, that was gonna be what LCD Soundsystem was. I was gonna use this stupid beatbox, and I was gonna sing along to it. It's gonna be me with a mic and this thing on a bar stool with a mic in front of it. And I started like formulating this song, and instead, I kind of set it up going through, we have a big suitcase Rhodes with a big 2 speakers, a pretty loud amp. And I set it up going through that, and I was playing drums to it. You must have drum patterns you sit down that are other people's drum patterns that you sit down when you're loosening up for just...
Of course, yeah.
I play Little Miss Lover, and I play Change. Like that little turnaround. And that's like one of the things I do. So I was playing basically the Change drum beat to this other drum beat. And I was like, all right, quickly, I set up microphones, I set up a vocal mic, and I kind of improvised the lyrics to the beatbox while drumming. So that's what Losing My Edge is. And then I afterwards added bass and some keyboards and stuff. But primarily, it was just like an improvised thing. And then I made the other thing, the beat connection is just like me drumming and playing a little bass and singing. And
so it's
it was just me.
More constructing
Yeah,
constructing a song rather than writing it. Per se.
Constructing them as how they feel, like letting them run for
you
a
don't
long
sit down
period.
with an acoustic guitar.
No, nothing like that.
God. To this day,
Still how I work. One of the ways I write is I know what everything is before I start recording. Other ways I write is I go in with like a sort of a process. And it's become more collaborative over the years, which has been really nice. It's not as lonely. And the people in my band are like my friends, and they're really talented and more skilled at their instruments than I am at them. So.
Do they bring stuff that where the original idea is from them, and then you guys work on it together? Does it always start with you, and then
it always comes from me?
They give you input on what your thing is.
It comes from me, and they have their own projects
spark is
as
always
well.
from you.
So, but they have their own projects as well. It's unnecessary. Like Pat has Museum of Love, Al Doyle has Hot Chip and New Build. Nancy's in the Juan McLean. Tyler Pope makes his own music. Gavin Reyna makes their own music. Like everyone makes their own music. So.
Do you ever hear stuff that they do in their other projects?
I love it.
Where you go, but do you ever get like, wait a minute, why the fuck is that not LCD?
No, because LCD isn't supposed to be the best thing. It's supposed to be my thing. Like it's not. There's nothing about LCD. Like nothing about when I make the argument that it should be this way. I'm never making the argument that this is the best way. And this is the big liberation of being more in charge of the project.
Do you remember the exact moment where you made the decision to call it?
It had been brewing for a long time. It had been brewing when I was making the record.
So there was not one incident that triggered it, like this happened or this didn't happen, so it, we're going to call it? It was more like an arc?
I mean, there were moments when I verbalized it. It was brewing for a really long time. It was brewing when I was making the record. I kind of felt like it was the last record when I was making it. We rented Rick Rubin's Crazy Mansion because I was like, this is the last time a major label's going to give me money to make a record. In Laurel Canyon, we rented a mansion, and like everyone had to wear white.
Yeah.
And like I had an assistant who wore like a dashiki. And like he would like
flirting with extravagance.
Yeah, no, just like we just wanted to have like a weird 70s recording experience because we felt like that was missing in the modern era. Like if I could have had like an acid meditation leader that stayed with us, I would have done that. Like just to be as weird as possible. And everyone who visited has to dress all in white. And we had a white van, and we'd all go together, and like 15 people in a white van, and like descend upon a store. We'd go to parties like that. Like we'd get like
all the footage from that is sped up.
Yeah, well, we had to DJ. I had a DJ one night with Pat at this party. And we're like, well, we need a white limo. And so we had like 20 people and shoved into a giant white stretch limo. We all descend upon a nightclub. We looked like a creepy cult. And I don't know, that was just like a fun way to like have an experience, I guess. It's like, you know, I've always tried to create an experience for myself when I make a record because I don't feel like an artist naturally. I feel like a technician. So I have to create something that's like, gives me liberty to like almost get as weird as humanly possible. And that certainly did it.
You looked down the pipeline and you saw a wall?
I saw...
What did you see?
A couple things were going for. One of them is the sense of humor about the band that we've always tried to maintain. In that it's like, we don't have to do this. The way the arc of press and public opinion was going, we were set up to be a bigger band next record out. And something about that made me sad. And I can't really put my finger on why. But something about that seemed like ordained and uninteresting. Something about quitting the band I thought was even funny. Like just being like, I think people don't understand how we see it. Like how we saw how lucky it was and how funny it was. And ending it kind of lightheartedly almost seemed as a way to explain to people that like this is just a weird thing that we've all done accidentally. Everyone in the band got in it for the weekend. I asked people to play 2 shows in London in 2002, November, and that was it. I was like, can we learn 6 songs?
It became a 10-year weekend.
Yeah, and it became like a weekend in which people didn't see their kids and like they became their lives. No one signed up for that. It was literally my friends. Do you want to play the couple songs in England? Yeah, okay, great. Maybe we'll play one more show. It was never supposed to be this. But also, I was realizing that like the arc of American bands is a funny thing. In England, it's very different. Bands almost commit Harry Carey on their second record sometimes because they desperately have to be different. Like they have to do something else. And so they'll make this crazy experimental record that nobody likes, and then they get second guessing. And then if they go back to their original formula, people think they're... It's just really complicated thing. As an American
it's also
band...
the media has a different role in it in England because they prop you up, and then as soon as you get somewhere, then they're ready to shoot you down.
In America, like there's a great interview, I think, with Angus Young, Malcolm, where someone said like, what do you say to the critics who said you've made the same record 18 times? And he said, bollocks, it's 19. and I've always loved that. Like, they're like, we're AC/DC. This is what we do, man. Right. This is the way it works.
Our wheelhouse, yeah.
Right. And in America, like, if you kind of hang in long enough and you don't screw up. You just get bigger. I had met my now wife, Christina, and I'd met her on tour, and she quit her job, and I was like, I'll quit my job. I want to just have a life with you, and like, let's build a life, which was really hard to do as a touring musician. And we spent years just like being in each other's presence all the time, and like thinking of projects we wanted to do together and traveling together. And we got married, and we had a kid. And, I really enjoyed being free to do that stuff. And it only was complicated by the fact that I started writing music again. And I never really stopped writing music, but I started writing music with the idea of going into the studio.
Do you remember a specific moment when it was like, wait a minute?
Yeah. I was
maybe
singing into my
LCD.
phone
Yep.
and writing names of songs down. And then I was like, uh-oh. And
It's lurking.
But I was just like, okay, then I don't do that's fine. I'm not making music. I'm not going to do that. And my wife got kind of mad at me. Because I always...
So this was what?
Well, I have this thing about my 15-year-old self. I'm like, what would my 15-year-old self say? It's been like a guiding principle of the band all along. Like, because I never wanted to be a band that let anybody down. So my wife threw back at me, you built your dream recording studio in 1997. You own it. You have all the instruments you want. Like, your 15-year-old self would be horrified if you didn't go make music. That's all he wanted. All I wanted was a studio to be able to go make the music the way I wanted to make it. And then when you have to think about, like, well, why wouldn't I? Well, because it would be embarrassing. Or I'd look dumb. Or strangers who I will die without ever interfacing with will think I lied or that I'm not what I say I am. And that's as compelling and as frightening as facing that stuff is. It's not enough to not make music.
To not move forward.
Yeah. I'm starting working on a record already.
Great.
In fact, one of my goals is I look at like how quickly people used to make records. People used to make a record a year, at least.
Every 6 months. I mean,
Right.
the Beatles put out, 9 records in 5 years?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, think about it this way. What an artist is supposed to do now, and I use artist in the professional term, not in the artiste term,
Artiste?
is so much more apart from the music than it ever was. Like, I've done more interviews than all 4 Beatles combined in their careers. And, you know, I am by all rights not a very big artist.
This interview may be longer
than any Beatle interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Combined.
Yeah. And also, do you remember when people said world tour? Remember, like, when you were a kid, they were like, Led Zeppelin's on a world
Of course.
tour.
Yeah. That's 3 months, of course, yeah.
And they played in Australia. And after their 4th record, they played Japan once.
Yeah, of course.
A small band on an independent label plays Australia every year. Like, everyone's on a world tour. It's all a world tour. That's why you don't say world tour anymore, because it's a meaningless delineation. You used to be like, if you're an English band, you played in England, and then at one point you went and played in New York.
Or Holland.
Yeah,
Go play in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo!
yeah. This was like, whoa. On the 3rd record, we went to France. Like, you played some regional shows,
Of
and then you
course,
went
yeah.
back in the studio. And you didn't make videos. And you didn't have meetings with your accountant or your business manager, and you didn't have like an electronic press kit, and there was no behind the scenes stuff to approve, and there wasn't like footage of every single show recorded on multitrack that you had to approve the mixes. Like, there's like just so much ancillary stuff, which is all logical and makes sense. And I take seriously my responsibility. Like, a label has deigned to put our records out, which was a dream gift to me as a child. And I'm not going to be like, I want to do that. Like, it's like, you know, I do my best to do what I can.
Yeah, it's part of an immersive experience. I mean,
And I think that's just why it's so much slower to make records.
Right. Thank you so much
My pleasure.
for coming and being a part of this great conversation. James Murphy, everybody. Thank you.
Woo.